You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, begin Disney.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome in to another rockin' awesome Saturday night here on the Six Screens. Wow, we're glad you're coming in. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about those two new governing body members. Have you heard about them? Wow, what an amazing thing. These guys must have been in a bubble for all this time because no one's ever heard of them. We'll talk about them tonight. We'll get your feelings on it right here on JW World News. Hello, friends, and all the people that are listening into the program tonight. We really give you a big shout out and a real big greeting. We really appreciate your presence. And boy, I have to say, the Six Screens is growing like crazy. More and more people are listening in. They're finding the format pretty entertaining. We have people call in from all over the world and voice their concerns about one of the most evil cults in the world. That is the Watchtower organization, i.e. Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, anyways, my name's Rick Ferrin. I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. We're in good company. I'll tell you what, more and more people are leaving the Watchtower, and you're going to land up with a lot of apostates in your neck of the woods as well. Well, I have to tell you, I've been doing this program now going on 17 years. It'll be 17 years on January 26th. That's just 5 days away. And it just amazes me that we've been able to do this program every Saturday night. We have never missed a Saturday night. I find this very, very good for me. And I know it's good for you folks. It's like therapy, right? And we can all come together and sit around the couch, as we say, and talk about what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And I have to say, 17 years ago, there wasn't this much cynical, negative, critical news about the Watchtower. But man, alive, I cannot believe everything we read about the Watchtower as of late is negative. These guys should be hiding their head in the sand. I don't know how they can even function with this much negative press. It's unbelievable. But we know they're buying advertisements in the paper and even on different local television channels. They're buying advertising. Puff pieces is what we call them. We're going to be talking about one of those puff pieces here tonight. Well, let's try to get right into it, I guess. But just one thing I want to just remind everybody, just so we're all understanding how this works here at the Six Screens. We have a number of platforms that we are on. We're on YouTube. We're on a number of Facebook pages, group pages as well. We're on Twitter. We're pretty much all over the place. And also we have our own private little Six Screens network here. We call it the Six Screens Video Suite. So we also broadcast on that as well as on a telephone line or our radio telephone network. So if you guys are on the telephone network, when you call in, what you want to do is you want to hit *6, that unmutes you. And if you could do this for me, when you're done talking, just hit *6 again. I know sometimes you forget, it's easy, but hit *6 again, and that will mute you. And then we'll be able to keep a nice clear line, because that's important to listen to a podcast or a streaming video that you can hear pretty good in. It's kind of hard to make it perfect because everyone's phones are different, but we'll try to make it the best we possibly can. Well, we get another puff piece. Oh yeah, another puff piece this week. The Watchtower is really going to town and buying advertisement. Yeah, advertisement, and here they are. They're in a, well, I'm going to play a little clip. You'll get to hear. It's a video clip. Plus, they're also in a newspaper, and they must be paying for this because no newspaper is going to do like a big spread on the witnesses. There's no reason to do a big spread on the witnesses. My goodness, but that's what we see lately. And of course, you have the witnesses in there telling you how great everything is. Well, why don't we do this? Let me see if I can't get that clip up. And why don't we play that clip? Let me just make sure we get it here so you'll be able to see it because I think you'll find it very, very fascinating. Where is the clip? We'll get the clip. Don't worry. Just stay with us. So anyways, let's see where the clip is. Well, let's see. The clip is not there. But, I mean, I think you can probably why don't you just hear the clip? We can let you hear the clip, and you'll be fine with that. So let's hear what these guys had to say. Of course, there's an ad playing right now, so just give it a second, and then the ad will stop. So let's hear what these guys have to say. Just give it 1 second here, and then we'll hear what they're going door to door. They're all excited about going back out in service, if you can imagine that. And how sick is that? Well, here it goes right now. Listen in. It's a woman knocking on a door, waiting for someone to answer. No one seems to be answering. The woman's out in service with her husband, and they're going door to door. And we're just going to see if they do say something here. If not, I'll just read you
It's like a celebration. I mean, honestly, in my heart, this is what I grew up doing. So being able to get back in touch with people in the community, seeing their faces, their smiles, whether they were happy or sad, it just felt good to be able to be in touch and to let them know that we're still here.
We did telephone witnessing and letter writing as our ministry, but it was hard because I like to talk to people face to face.
Nothing better than to be able to see the person's reactions to the message that we delivered to everyone, and then just to see something that there is a message of hope, and just seeing that expressions of their face, there's nothing like it.
What's it been like? You're knocking on doors again in September, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And some people may not want you there, or I mean, is it kind of like, no, not this again, or?
Everybody has different reactions, but for the most part, it's been very positive. And even people who don't always anticipate our visit, are normally like looking to talk. I feel like people want to just have that connection. They want to be able to talk to someone sometimes, and so I've gotten a really positive response so far to our going back.
Well, I mean, can you really believe all of that? Here they are. This is the puff piece, and the witnesses are so happy to be back out in service, tracing around on cold sidewalks, snow-covered sidewalks in some cases. I mean, would you be happy? So they're really, really promoting this idea that how wonderful it is, and all the Jehovah's Witnesses are so happy to be back into the field ministry. I think it's absolutely lying. That's all it is. It's lying. It's trying to tell a story that's really not true. And we have many of them saying they're so happy to return to rapping on doors. And for nearly 30 months, they weren't able to do that. And now they're able to go out on a Saturday morning and knock on doors all over the neighborhood. And one person says it was really big when they says, well, Robert Hendricks, remember him? He's saying he's that spokesman for the Watchtower that we pick bones at, right? Well, Robert Hendricks says it was so big when the Watchtower suspended our door-to-door work. And it was, in other words, so many witnesses were so upset that they couldn't go door to door. Do you believe that? I mean, we've been reporting here on JW World News for months. I mean, they started in September 1st, but we've been reporting for months and how nobody wants to go out. They can't stand it after not being in service for 30 months. I mean, you're rusted out. That is going to be a real chore to be able to, put your boots on, your coat on, and go out knocking on doors all over the neighborhood. I have to tell you, Mr. Hendricks, nobody's totally excited about going back door to door. It's not the case. It's not the case. And then, of course, Hendricks, he makes the comment. This comment really is so disingenuous. We wanted to be able to say, no one contracted the virus and died as a result of our decision of not going door to door. So in other words, they didn't want to go door to door because they were afraid someone might contact the coronavirus and die. Do you think that Robert Hendricks gave two hoots of beans about worldly people dying because of coronavirus? That is absolutely nuts. So yeah, they resumed the in-person meetings on September 1st, and then shortly after that, they started going door to door as well. So they're good at making it look so nice. Oh, the people are dressed up. They look good. The men have a nice hat on and clean shaving. They make it look so good. But, is it really the truth? I mean, do you want to return going door to door again? What a difficult thing to do. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad Satan kicked me out of his organization back in 2005, even though I didn't mind it too bad going out door to door. But I used to talk to so many people. I mean, I was kind of used to it to some degree because I was in sales work basically all of my life. And then you have, I can remember older sisters and younger kids. I don't like doing this, Brother Farron. I really, really don't. But all Jehovah's Witnesses have to go door to door. So there you go. So the woman's saying she's so happy to be able to be in touch with the people in the community, seeing their faces, seeing their smiles. Well, how about having them slamming the door on your face? That isn't brought up in this little video. How many doors have you had slammed on your face? You think that's a good thing? Going door to door with a controversial message like religion? And no, he would never say, well, we're not here to convert you, even though we were. I mean, people used to get aggravated. And now, here we are, it's January. I'm up here in Boston, and, I'm looking out, the snow on the ground, ice. And we had to trudge through all of that. And in a good part of the country where most people live up in the northern tier, it's wintry, it's cold. And even my wife Susan here, she's from Wisconsin, and she pioneered. And it was freezing cold, especially in Wisconsin, with the water, the Lake Michigan right next to where she lived, and the wind would come off of that. I mean, you'd have to have three layers of clothes on. I mean, 4 layers even, just to stay warm. But I don't look at service as this wonderful. I'm looking forward to going out and service this Saturday. It's just going to be a great thing. I never said that, and I never would say it. I did it because I thought I was doing it for Jehovah, just like you thought you were doing it. And then, the crazy thing about it, you'd feel good at the end of the hours that you'd get in. Usually on Saturday, I'd put 2.5, 3 hours in. And then you'd be so tired, you really couldn't do anything in the afternoon, right? You're just kind of moping around, but you felt good. You felt that Jehovah loved you because you went out in service. And then you get up and you go to the meeting on Sunday. And then I used to go out on Sunday many times too. Oh my goodness, that was terrible. You'd bring your lunch, so you're staying there after the meeting. So you get your kids, and we're all eating our lunch together. And then we'll be meeting for service, and then go back out for a couple more hours Sunday afternoon. Oh my goodness, I don't miss those days at all. And I would be willing to say that 99% of all Jehovah's Witnesses don't like the door-to-door ministry work. But they got to do these puff pieces. That they gotta have these spokespeople like Hendricks and these actors coming on and telling you how wonderful it is that they're back out in service. I don't see it that way. How about you guys? Did you like going out in service, especially in the winter? I mean, it's even bad in the summer when it's hot, right? But I'll tell you what, I didn't enjoy it, and I'm sure you never did either. Did you want to tell us how much you did? Is there anybody out there that did enjoy service? Is there anybody that did? Go ahead, you're on with us. Speak up.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, I wanted to mention about Robert Hendricks' comment about that they didn't want to be responsible for dying during the pandemic.
Yes.
So that's a bunch of talk because they can hardly wait for people to die at Armageddon. So why would they even care if they died of COVID?
Well, that's a good point, Susan. That's a darn good point. And if people were dropping dead all over the place because of COVID and they weren't witnesses, they wouldn't have any concern. They wouldn't be praying for the poor worldly people with COVID. They'd only be praying for their own
Never.
people. No, they wouldn't. I said many a prayers at the Kingdom Hall, and I'm embarrassed to even tell you folks, I never said a prayer for worldly people. It was always, Jehovah God, could you please be with our organization? Could you help the poor witness brothers and sisters? It was never praying for the people in the territory. Never. So you can see, I feel bad about that now. I'm actually embarrassed to even say it. But you guys probably did the same thing. Go ahead.
Oh, Rick, I'm worried about the governing body. I'm praying for them. Got my head covered. I'm really devout about it. Have you seen them?
Oh yeah, we'll be talking about them. We got a whole story on them coming up. Yeah.
My goodness. Now, they got two younger ones there that are okay, but I'm concerned because they've got guys that are even older than the ones they've got.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that, so we won't change the subject because that's a whole new story.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that in a little bit. I usually save one of the best stories for about, we get into the middle of the programming. We get a lot of people on. So we'll be talking about that. So we'll talk a lot about, I got a lot of information. I did a lot of research on these guys. So you'll be fascinated to know what I came up with and what I found out. I'm fascinated. Well, let's see what else is going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Well, anyways, what we're going to do here is I'm going to put a picture up on our screen, and then we're going to talk about this woman, because this woman is going to make a big deal. You're going to be hearing a lot about her in the Watchtower. Let's get her up here. There she is there. Do you recognize that woman there? You can see it if you're on YouTube and our Facebook channels. Her name is Rebecca Vardy, Vardy, Rebecca Vardy. And Rebecca is when she grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but she's a big star from what I understand over in England. And they had a television program called the Wagatha Christie Trial. It was a TV show, but it was based on a real trial. And I'll just say it again so you'll get it. Wagatha, not Agatha, but Wagatha Christie. And she's a big deal. She's a big deal over in England. And she had a television program all about this Wagatha Christie trial. Now, you guys remember Simpson, O.J. Simpson. I couldn't think of his first name. O.J. Simpson. Remember that trial? And boy, that thing went on for over a month, and people were just so involved in watching it, including my mother. She wouldn't miss a second of it, but everybody was glued to their TV set. Well, this is kind of similar with this Rebecca Vardy woman in this TV show. It was a mock show, but it was based on a real trial. And let me give you an idea what this is all about. First of all, you say, well, what is Wagatha Christie? What does that mean? Well, first of all, WAG, it's an acronym for wives and girlfriends of professional athletes. So they were kind of patterning this, making a big story about it because of the Agatha Christie writings. So they tied it together. They called it Wagatha Christie. And so anyways, I'll just kind of summarize what happened in the real case. Rebecca, she seemed to be aggravating one of the other sports stars' wives. And she was evidently, according to this other sports star, she was taking information and spreading it around the internet that wasn't true. Now, she went to court for this because the other woman, who was married to a sports star as well, she said that Rebecca was not really, she was slandering or saying things that weren't correct. So this went on, and people in England were really concerned about it because Rebecca was married to a very famous, they call it football, but it's soccer. We call it soccer. They call it football there. Rebecca, she was the wife of the Leicester City striker. His name was Jamie. He just goes by Jamie. Everybody knows him as Jamie. It's like Brady, right? Everybody knows the name. So anyway, she was married to Jamie, and this other woman, her name was Rooney, was married to a soccer star as well. And geez, they didn't hit it off with each other. But anyways, I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm just going to cut to the chase. So anyways, Rebecca lost in court, and she was indeed criticized for writing the information she did about the other woman. And she lost the case. But the people, they liked it so much, they did a television series about it. So Rebecca actually played the woman in the series, and they all love Rebecca in England. So anyways, what goes on now is they wanted to continue this the Wagatha Christie tales, and have her do more cases like that on the program. But she didn't want to do it. She says, no, I got a better idea. Oh, I like Rebecca's new idea. Rebecca has a new idea, and a new idea is to do a documentary series on exposing Jehovah's Witnesses, because Rebecca actually was one of Jehovah's Witnesses when she was a young girl, and she's so aggravated with the Watchtower organization because as a young child, she said she never really enjoyed life at all. There was nothing for a young Jehovah's Witness child. They didn't celebrate Christmas. They didn't have birthdays. She said it was so tough being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So what she wants to do, and good for her, she wants to do a program which will be on, at least in England, maybe the whole United Kingdom, I don't know. But the program is going to be her going around the countryside interviewing former Jehovah's Witnesses. That sounds pretty good to me. That's up my alley. I think it's up your alley too. So Rebecca, we wish you the best. And maybe we could even get you here on the 6 screens one of these nights, and you could explain your story. That would be wonderful. So that's what that's all about. You probably, if you've been on Reddit or some other forums or even YouTube, they've been talking about Wagatha Christie all week long. So we ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we are waving the flag for Rebecca to come forward and be able to interview these ex-witnesses. Boy, can you imagine, what would you do if you were a governing body member and you had all of this bad press? Now, you have a well-known person, television personality, wife of a famous sports star. This woman's known. And now you have this woman, she's going to be blabbing all over the networks in England, all about how bad Jehovah's Witnesses are. Do they need that? That no wonder why they're doing these puff pieces. Now, no wonder why they're paying television stations and newspapers to carry these positive articles about them, because you really can't get these positive articles on your own. You got to make them up, and you got to pay someone to put them up for you. So this is how low the Watchtower has got. They are stooping very, very low. And I mean, if I was a governing body member, I would have my head buried in the sand. How can these men walk around every day and even go out in public and people are pointing? Well, the public, they don't know who the Jehovah's Witness governing body are. But, if they did, they would be pointing fingers at these guys. Look at that guy. They cover up child molesting. Look at that guy. He's in a cult. He's a cult leader. Geez, how can you even function in life being a cult leader? I would find that really, really difficult. But anyways, we're seeing more and more. Look at, Leah Remini, she came out, she did a whole documentary. First of all, her documentary was on Scientology, but then she got a number of ex-witnesses writing, and then she did a documentary all about Jehovah's Witnesses and how cruel and all the cover-ups. And then we had the W5 film team out of Canada, that's equal to 60 Minutes. They actually did a video too, all about the witnesses. In fact, they came to our protest up there in Warwick, New York back in 2017. I made a cameo appearance in there. It was wonderful to be in a national television program in Canada and have the Canadian people take a good look at what goes on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And not only Leah Remini and W5 out of Canada, But how about on the Oxygen Network? And remember Romy? Remember Romy? She used to come on our program. She had her own program here in the Six Screens. Well, she made it big in the ex-witness world. I mean, they did a great documentary all about her, and it was wonderful. And she did a great job exposing the Watchtower organization and numerous other programs. Not just that, but also radio podcasts, newspaper articles like the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Atlantic Magazine, all of these big top newspapers and even television networks exposing what goes on in the Watchtower. I mean, wouldn't you just stop and think? I just want you just to stop, just think for a second. So sometimes we have a hard time thinking, but I just want you to relax. If you were constantly being bombarded with how bad something is, let's say it's Toyota, for example, and all of a sudden you have all of this negative news coming across the internet and television stations telling you how bad a Toyota is. Don't buy a Toyota. They're not good. I mean, they're good cars. I'm just using them as an example. But if you kept hearing that, would you go out and buy a Toyota? The answer is no. So do they expect when they go door to door, and they're knocking on doors all over the place now, and they got their carts as well, do they expect to have people come in? Oh, you guys are so wonderful. We're so good to have you back in the neighborhood. They're not getting messages like that. Come on. People know who the witnesses are. You know, I'll tell you what, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, they really didn't. I mean, the Jehovah's Witness organization, first of all, is nothing more than a pimple on a rhino's back. It's really not big. We have a niche network here. And in terms of major religions, you know, I'll call it a major religion, but it really isn't. They couldn't even hold a candle to the amount of people that are in the Catholic Church and the Southern Baptist people. I mean, but the witnesses, we have our own little network here, so we focus in on them. But, you know, people at one point, you could even, I can remember even, 10, 15 years ago, talking to people at random about Jehovah's Witnesses. I told people I was in a cult. And they said, well, what was I? I said, Jehovah's Witnesses. Many people said they never even heard of them. But people are hearing about Jehovah's Witnesses today. I think everybody knows who a Jehovah's Witness is for the most part. I mean, they got their tarnished name out there. People know what's going on in that terrible, terrible organization. So that's good. So we're looking forward to Rebecca's program. Boy, I'll tell you, I'd love to have her come on and talk to us about that too. So that'll be wonderful. That'll be wonderful. But all of us have a story to tell, especially if you grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Your life as a child basically stunk. You couldn't enjoy any. Little kids like to do things. Little kids like to do things. They love Christmas. They love birthdays. They love pony rides. They love parties. They love all of that. They love all of the little holidays, Valentine's Day, and giving little hearts and cutting things out of paper, and Halloween, and put little masks on. Kids love that. Who ruined it? The Watchtower. So how can you really, if you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness and you were just a young child, now no wonder why a lot of these children have grown up with severe mental problems. I mean, they're not schizophrenic, but geez, they need help from therapists, and they need help because this cult is so ingrained in their system. They have a hard time shaking it loose. We hear the people coming on the Six Screens talking about this, don't we? Yes, we do. Well, so anyways, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for sticking your neck out, so to speak, and you want to expose these people that are doing so much harm. Well, let's take a look and see what else is going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Now, remember, we've got a great program. We got a number of great programs coming up tonight. You don't want to miss it. I want to keep telling you about it because it's going to be really important. Jimmy Bell is back with us. He's on tonight with his team. They're going to be tonight talking about, of course, the coming New World Order, but they're also going to be talking about human trafficking, especially child trafficking. Now, I'm going to tell you something. There's a correlation between child trafficking and what's going on right now at the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I'm not going to tell you for full certainty, and I don't want you to take it to the bank and cash it, but information has been coming into the 6 screens here. And what the information is saying is there was a SWAT team that showed up at Warwick in the last week, and it was an inside Bethel person that got this leaked out. So it did leak out, and evidently what they were looking for was child pornography, because in view of the new flock book, right, and how that's not a sin anymore. It's not a sin, so to speak. It's not a disfellowshipping case if you're viewing child pornography. So, but I can't tell you that happened for sure, because you're going to get a lot of these. I get a lot of stuff sent to me, friends. This is like a clearinghouse, but that got my attention. And the reason why it did is because Johnny the Bethelite, he was our man. He had his own radio program here on the 6 screens for a number of years, and he was an insider at Bethel. And he spoke about this very thing, about kiddie porn rings, and even how the governing body was involved in some of this pervasive, terrible sex perversion. So even Johnny talked about it. So, I'm not going to tell you to take it to the bank and catch it, because I don't know, but maybe I'll have more information. The people that did give me this, maybe they'll give me more, but there's so many people out there. You know what it's like having a clearinghouse for news here at 6 screens? I get news comes in here on a daily basis. All night long, I hear my little telephone. I keep it right next to my bed. Ding, ding, ding. People are sending, and thank you. Keep sending them. Don't you ever stop sending me news, because this is how I get to know what's going on in the world with Jehovah's Witnesses. But that phone is dinging all the time. I'm getting videos sent to me. I'm getting all kinds of thoughts. Some of it, can't be substantiated. I try to run with what I know for sure. So I'll tell you, if I don't think it's for sure, I'll let you know. I don't want to speak of, well, it's there, and then get everyone all riled up, and it's not. So anyways, I find it good. So keep the stories coming. Keep those stories coming. The people that got me the information on the SWAT team at Bethel, maybe you can, at Warwick, maybe you can give me some more information on that, because that got my attention. Believe it did. All right. Well, anyways, I don't know if you heard about it or not. I think you probably did by now. Well, it's 2 new governing body members. Did you hear that? Oh, that's the biggest story. That is by means the biggest story in the Watchtower organization this week, because it was on January 23rd. Now, what's the day? No, I'm sorry. It's on January 18th. Today is the 21st. So just a couple of days ago, right? Just a couple of days ago, it looks like, well, it did happen. It's for sure. I've seen it on jw.org. New governing body members. You heard it right. 2 new governing body members. And this is their letter. I'm reading it right from their site. We are pleased to inform you that 2 additional brothers have been appointed to serve as members of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Brothers Gage, that's G-A-G-E, Gage is his first name. Brothers Gage Fleegle, F-L-E-E-G-L-E, Gage Fleegle, and Jeffrey Winder. Both brothers are anointed Christians who have a long history of loyal service to Jehovah. Brother Fleegle began his full-time service in 1989 and Bethel service in 1991. Brother Fleegle has served as a helper to the service committee of the governing body. Now, Brother Jeffrey Winder began his full-time service in 1986 at Bethel service in 1990. Brother Winder has also served as a helper to the personal committee of the governing body. So we thank our Heavenly Father Jehovah for raising up such faithful men to share in the work of the governing body. We pray that Jehovah will richly bless brothers Flegel and Winder and their wives. Now, I did a little research on these men, and I have to say that Flegel, Brother Flegel, he came from East Hills Congregation in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. He came from humble beginnings. He came from a blue-collar family. And I'm super surprised, really, that they actually appointed him because he didn't come from money. He didn't have a rich beginning. He didn't seem to be in any elite circles. He didn't really seem to do much of anything. And now here he is, a governing body member. Now, it looks like, I'm going to say, it's like these two guys were in a bubble. I mean, for all of these years, I never heard of these two men. Winner and Flegel, I never heard of them. So at one point, Brother Flegel, he actually even questioned the Watchtower organization, if you can believe that. And his father, he would question his father, who was a staunch witness, and say, how do we know this is the truth, Dad? How do we know that Jehovah's Witnesses have the truth? And then his father, Flegel's father, was so happy that he did all the research he had to do. And he came to know that, yes, Jehovah's Witnesses are the only true religion on the planet. So there you have it. So anyway, just to give you an idea, these men aren't old. I mean, don't expect them to be looking like Brother Hurd or like Brother Loesch. They're in their early 50s. Yes.
I'm wondering, I finally caught this word. You said these men were helpers? They were formerly helpers. Does this mean that they're not anointed if they were formerly helpers? Or did they just become anointed, or what's the story?
Susan, we're going to get to that story. This is what's causing the biggest buzz. It is just unreal. The people out there buzzing, not only ex-witnesses, but even Jehovah's Witnesses are starting to question this and saying, wait a minute, these guys came out of nowhere. One of them is 50, one of them is 51. So something's not passing the smell test here. But, even the names Flegel and Winder, it seems very culty to me. It really, really does. And like I say, these guys have been living in a bubble for the last 30 years. No, nobody's even heard of these guys. I'm going to put some pictures up.
Rick.
Yes.
Hey, this is Joey.
Yes, Joey.
Mark O'Donnell on his Twitter feed when they first happened. I don't know how he got it, but he got a snippet of the Bethel directory from 2009, and I forget which one it was, but one of them was the head fire chief for the fire department there at Wallkill.
That's right. That's right, Joey. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Twitter feed,
yeah. Well, there you go. So, I mean, these guys really come up out of nowhere. You're looking, if you're on YouTube right now, if you're on Facebook, you're looking at the magnificent, well, we used to say there's 7, but now we've got 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We got 10 of them. Now you can see them all. We're going to put an up front and close picture, though. I'm going to put up, this is the new governing body. His name is Winder. That's governing body man. His name is Jeffrey Winder. That's Jeffrey right there. And he's got those really big eyelashes, right? And we can he kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember this or not. No, I don't want to make fun of the governing body here, but do you guys remember this? Remember the gaucho match? The gaucho mask you used to wear with the big eyelashes and the glasses? The first thing I saw when I saw Brother Winder, I says, wow. He reminds me of the Groucho Marx. I can, as I'm watching him and looking at the little video he's in here, you guys can see at least a picture of it. It reminds me of, remember the duck used to come down and give you $100? So maybe, remember Groucho Marx used to say, when the duck comes down, if you say the secret word, it'll give you $100. Well, the secret word here is anointed, and the duck will come down. The secret word is anointed. So these guys were anointed, and I mean, conveniently so, because nobody can really be on the governing body unless they are anointed. Now let's put a picture up of our other governing body member here, and that is Flegel. That is Brother Flegel. And so anyways, they are the two new governing body members. There's now 10 of them. Now, some are thinking that the Watchtower is bringing these two new ones on because of the aging Brother Hurd. He's in his late 70s, and Brother Loesch. Some are thinking they're not going to even be able to make it here soon. They're not doing too good health-wise. So some are saying, well, they're going to bring these guys on to kind of fill the gap. But what's really throwing everyone for a flying loop here is these guys are, young. They're very, very young. This is not the way it usually has been. And if you guys remember, Fred Franz. Remember Fred Franz? Oh, man, what a guy he was. He was, of course, a cult leader, too. But Fred Franz, who actually was the president of the Watchtower, he died in 1993, and around there, 92, 93. And, he actually came on and did a tape, a videotape from a convention. And I remember seeing it. And he says, no new additions. He said 1935 was the cutoff date. No new additions. He said it very emphatically. And he was saying that there'd be no new anointed ones after 1935. So we have a problem here with this. The math here is not really working in favor of Fred Franz's position that he took on no new anointed. So these men are anointed. And just to give you an idea, they're only 40, they're 50 and 51 years old. So they were born back in the 70s. There's no way. I mean, that's long past. Well, just to give you an idea, if you were born in 1935, if you were born in 35 when the anointing was cut off, according to Fred Franz, you'd be 87 years old today. So, you'd have to be 87 according to Watchtower doctrine to actually be a governing body member claiming to be anointed. You'd have to be that old, but no. We got, we've got these guys 51, 50, 50, and 51. Now let's take a look here. Now let's say, okay, you had to be born in 1970, in 1969, actually, 1969. That's how old they were. They were born in 69 and 70. So they're nowhere near 87. So these, yes, go ahead.
Rick, I was just going to say one thing.
Yeah.
You probably would add about 10 years because the youngest person getting baptized reasonably might be 10 years old. So that's an additional 10 years.
All right, we could add a little bit more.
97.
Yeah.
97 at least.
So there you have it. So, but all of a sudden we have these two guys come out of a bubble and, in their early 50s, just turned 50. One of them, the other one's 51. And so they come out of a bubble and now they are governing body. So, okay. So I've been researching this pretty much all week and trying to figure this all out because it's really not coming in line with Watchtower teachings. It even kind of makes mockery of the overlapping generation. So here's a thought on that. I'm not going to get too convoluted with this, but the overlapping generation, that would be anyone that got to know one of the governing body members, seen them personally, talked with them personally. And if that happened prior to, Fred Franz was a pretty big wheel in the Watchtower, right? So these two men, Winder and Flegel, they were at Bethel. So they evidently knew that they were there before Fred Franz died. So because these two new brothers knew Fred Franz and spoke with him and conversed with him, according to Splain's talk, they would be in the overlapping generation. Yeah, just from being around Franz and hearing him speak and being with him there at Bethel, they would qualify to be in the overlapping generation. So that's why Splain did that talk a couple of years ago. They were getting ready. they were getting ready to do something like this. So at least they could explain it. Well, no, that's okay. Remember that they got to know Franz, and they were here at Bethel. They were young men, but they conversed with him and they heard him speak. So they're part of the overlapping generation. If you believe that, I mean, that's a crock of baloney. But that's how they reason, folks. That's how they're able to pull the wool over people's eyes. You got something to say? Go ahead. You're on with us.
Oh, hello, Rick. I thought that the reason was you didn't replace someone was when somebody had to actually die of the governing body before they were replaced. But now you said these two guys are older. I don't know how close to near death they are, but they're like covering their butt, so to speak, because they're waiting because they have these two elderly ones. I mean, I thought someone had to actually die.
Oh no.
You know, replacement.
Well, I mean, it's not like the Pope, even though they like to. They would.
I know, almost like the Pope. Yeah, I know, but I thought someone had to actually die before they were replaced.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Hello.
Go ahead. You're on with us. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say, Rick, if I might be wrong on the date, but I think it was around 07 or 08 where they said evidently the calling, they sort of changed their doctrine on that and said that evidently the calling didn't end in 1935 and apparently more people could get called because that's when the numbers, so you got to go back and look at the numbers of partakers. Look at it, there was a dramatic jump after that. If you look at the numbers from like say 1990 up to about 2007, 2008, it was around 9,000. Then it started going up high. It's over 20,000 now. So they just got new light and said that evidently God was going to call some at the end of time. So you're able to have governing body members, I guess.
Well, right. Well, what they
I agree with that. It was I think in 2007, in one of those in a Watchtower, one of those questions from readers or what does the Bible teach articles. And they opened it back up. They said that possibly the number was not filled by 1935, and many of these people might be new people, but new anointed people who were not replacing, but were just original anointed. And interestingly, that happened after they started adding these new people to the governing body.
Yeah, and then what they also did. Yeah, hold on one second. What they also did, Zach and Mike, is, after 35, if you became anointed, they wanted to make it seem like you were a replacement. They really had to put some caveats in there to diffuse people's thinking. So they would say, well, and they were replacements. But then they also came out with an article that, many people are becoming anointed because of leftover ties to Christendom, and they thought they were going to heaven. Many are emotionally imbalanced. Many are on drugs, all of this. But so they really scrutinized anyone, but these guys kind of slid right under the door, come up out of nowhere, and now they're governing body members. Go ahead, you run with us.
Yeah, remember in 1935, they had the cross still hanging up in Kingdom malls across the United States and around the world. That's another thing in 1935.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, they had some crazy teachings, but I mean, they're getting crazier all the time. And I have to say, yes, go ahead.
Kurt, just a quick comment on the governing body, and I'm pretty much serious about this. In the Mormon Church, they have the 12 apostles, and then the conference leader or the president of the Mormon Church is the prophet. So really, the Watchtower could, or maybe should, go to a 12-member group and have a 13th member in the governing body. He could be the prophet or the oracle. That might work better for them. Anyway, thank you for taking my call.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, I'm gonna call them the 10 plagues of Warwick is what we got here now, and we got these two new guys coming up out of nowhere, and it's really stumbling people. Go ahead, you're on. Go ahead, speak up.
Oh, hello.
Yes.
I just got to say this really quick.
Go ahead.
Rick. I got to defend Rutherford on this. You just said they're coming up with crazier teachings. I'm going to tell you, no, the Watchtower will never teach anything crazier than what Rutherford taught. He taught the. I'm going to have to defend him on that. His teachings were the craziest that they ever had, and I don't think they'll surpass.
Well, I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you. Absolutely. Yes. In fact, Rutherford was the crazy maniac of the Watchtower. No doubt about that. So we got two guys here that they worked in the service department and the personnel department. Never heard of them. And I was even on a witness site. I got on a JW site, actual witness site on Facebook today. And was, these guys are so crazy. It's so wonderful that Jehovah's given us two governing body members. And isn't it great how things are going in Jehovah's organization? Man, I'll tell you, I had to get off of it. It was making me sick. So we got this guy, both of these guys, that's really creating a real buzz, like I say, not only in the ex-witness world, but also in the Jehovah's Witness world. Now, Flegel and Jeffrey Winder, they both gave talks at the recent 152nd, I should say, Gilead graduation back in December of 2022. And that was on JW Broadcasting. But, I haven't really seen them. I don't remember even seeing them then. But what I'm thinking here, friends, and this really boggles my mind, you think they would have kind of brought them on broadcasting numerous times to kind of get you used to them. But just out of the blue, Watchtowers, we get two new governing body members. But, here I'm looking at these guys and, they're okay. I mean, I'm not going to say they're terrible looking men. I mean, we're all getting old here. But why don't they pick young men? Geez, why don't they pick? I mean, if they're going to go that young, they might as well really go young. Pick some really good looking, handsome guys in the Watchtower and have them come out. But geez, these guys come out. You got Stephen Lett, you got Loesch, you got Hurd, you got Jeffrey Jackson, and now you got Flegel and you got Winner. And I'm telling you right now that they're not really, they have no charisma. There doesn't seem to be anything going for these guys. I mean, I'm not picking on them. I'm not. But maybe I should. I mean, maybe I should. They pick on us, right? The governing body, I'm sure they have all kinds of names for me and names for you too. They've already called us mentally diseased. They've already called us agents of Satan. So it's just not going to bother me if I say, the guy should shave his eyebrows a little bit. Really, it shouldn't bother me when I say that. These guys, that they have a number of words for us. So, maybe we'll give tit for tat here because these guys really, I mean, if Watchtower really wants to get things moving in their organization, put some younger guys out there that at least the younger generation can connect with. No wonder why they're losing so many people, young people these days. Now, the biggest thing, though, I'll tell you right now, what was really aggravating everybody, I mean, I couldn't believe all the posts were made on board on these boardrooms that I got into. And the biggest thing was all about them being white. Why didn't the Watchtower choose more black men? And, they had that's a reasonable gripe right there. That seemed to be the biggest. There's no diversity. It's all these white men. And so a lot of the black people were online and they're saying, listen, I says, it's just not, this is a worldwide organization where we're not just, American Jehovah's Witnesses. We have a worldwide organization. Why don't they use some Latin American men? Really, when you think about it, or even women. I mean, they never think of that. I mean, I know that for a fact. But you know what I found really, really fascinating? I get thinking, geez, if the Watchtower could only start moving in different directions here and doing things that normal organizations do, I think that would be wonderful. In fact, I was even thinking I'm going to put my pick here of who I would think could be a great Jehovah's Witness governing body member. I've got the picture here. I'm just looking for it. Just give me a second to find the picture. And I'd like to put this picture up to show you who I would think would be a great governing body person. Darn it, I don't have the clip, but who I was thinking is they should have Serena Williams right up there as a governing body member, right? I mean, really, she's outspoken and she's she's doing everything she can to want to be a good Jehovah's Witness. And if there ever was a woman, in fact, here's a picture right here I want to show you. If ever there was a woman that could be on the governing body, there she is, Serena. I mean, she has more followers than the Watchtower itself. She has over 10 million followers on Twitter. So, I mean, she'd be a pretty powerful governing body member. Maybe if they want to keep this organization alive and keep women happy, put Serena on the governing body. I mean, I think it could work. I know it sounds like satire here, but I mean, they've got to do something. They've got to begin to at least do something. Go ahead, you're on with us.
So, Rick, you're being funny with that, Serena, but even besides having an African American, there are no East Indians, no Asian people, no Latin.
No.
You know, it's always been just one brother, one black brother, I believe. No Asians, you know.
Yeah.
No East Indians, nothing. No Latin, nothing.
Well, what I find fascinating is I had some information come in here just a few weeks ago to the 6 screens, and these people were writing me, telling me that there's a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses in Africa that are leaving the organization, and they're finding out how racist the Jehovah's Witness organization was back in its early days. And so now that they're finding us out because of the internet and being online, they're starting to say, hey, we've had enough of it. So plenty of African Jehovah's Witnesses are leaving. And you would think, in view of this and in view of all of the comments they get all the time about, just white men on the governing body, you would think that they would at least take some thought here, some constructive criticism or whatever, and put some, black men, Latin American men, Indian, Asians, whatever, on the governing body. But they refuse to do it. Yeah.
It sounds like it looks like.
Yeah.
It sounds like it looks like the Supreme Court in the 1970s when Thurgood Marshall was there.
Yeah. Well, you got to balance it out a little bit, right? You got to balance. You got to balance it out.
Hey, go Brandon.
Yeah, go Brandon's right. So somebody else has something to say. Was your sister on there to want to say something? Go ahead. You're going. You're on with us. Go ahead.
It's David.
David, yeah.
Say this to Mike. Mike, put that foot.
Well, he might not know French. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Hey, I would like to ask the audience if you guys can help me. I need to find out in writing or a book or whatever you guys have how you get baptized in Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would like to give you my telephone number and give you let somebody. I'll give you my information after I give you my telephone number.
All right, David. So what you want to do? You want to know what the questions are, right? Does somebody want to know the questions they ask to be baptized? Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, give me a number.
My telephone number is area code 540-907-1708. And then I wanted to ask another question. What do they say before they get put into the pool, or when they get in the pool and start to get baptized?
All right. Well, there's any elders out there that used to ask those questions and knows what David's talking about here, and I seem to see what he's trying to find out. So go ahead, give that telephone number again, David.
Okay, it's area code 540-907-1708, and just call me after 10 o'clock at night. I don't answer anybody's calls.
All right, good for you. Okay, it's fine. Okay, we'll move on. That's good. All right, so okay, thank you, David. Well, we were talking about well, you guys know Gilbert, right? Oh, Gilbert. He's Gilbert Gonzalez. He did a little video. I want to play the video for you. I'd love to have you see Gilbert's video. It's called Diversity, and he made it up. It's just a little clip. It's only about a minute or so clip, but I found it very, very interesting because what Gilbert actually does is he talks about the diversity. And there should be more diversity in the organization, which there isn't. So let's see if we can't get that up there right now. Let me just get it up. This is Gilbert's video. Let's play the video. I want you to see it. All right. All right. So that's Gilbert Gonzalez. We all know Gilbert. He's running for the governing body, right? But he puts up these little videos once in a while. It's quite fascinating. But no more gringos, he says. He's looking at them, both white guys, and wondering, well, what's going on here? But I mean, that was the biggest buzz this week all over the internet. Where are the white men in the organization? I mean, where are the black men and other people, other races as well? There's none. Well, anyways, you're on JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about, but we're talking about it right here. And we do it every Saturday night and every other Sunday right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. All right, let me see what else we got going on here. Well, I mean, we could go on and on about the governing body, but, we really don't know much about them right now. There's not too much to say. So let's let it go at that. So let's take a look. What we got here? Okay. All right. There might be some more we want to talk about. Maybe not. Okay. No, well, I'm thinking 10 governing body members. I think it's only a matter of time they're going to make it 12. And then they can say, hey, we got 12 governing body members and kind of pattern it after the 12 apostles, right? Yeah, in other words, kind of like apostolic succession, right? Yeah, we're the new apostles, Jehovah's Witness governing body. Yeah, it's really amazing to me that Jehovah's Witnesses can't be up front with people, and they're not. And they should make it very, very clear, because I noticed tonight the biggest buzz we got is these guys are young. Are they anointed? How can they be on the governing body? Don't think those questions are being asked. And I'm sure the phone is ringing off the hook at Watchtower. All right. Yeah.
I'm just commenting because of the number of them. Brother Greenlees, he had been on, and he was, I guess, removed from the governing body in around the mid-'80s. And so when that happened, we were going to the Kingdom Hall that night. I was in Max Larson's car. Max Larson made the joke. He said, now they're the 12. And he said, if we lose another one, it'll be the faithful 11. So they had about, in that mid-'80s to late '80s time, they had 12 members, I believe it was. And I guess when Fred Franz died, that would have dropped it to 11.
There you go. Yeah, well, one time, yeah, that's right. At one time they did have 12, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you see that again. And a lot of changes, Zachary, and different than when you were at Bethel, right?
Oh, yeah. It's, just the move makes all the difference. And I remember hearing stories during the 90s that it was becoming very corporate compared to when I was there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about that on our next little segment here. You're absolutely right. Things have really changed, Zach. Really, really changed in the Watchtower. Oh, wow. We got a lot of people coming in here tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming in to the 6 Screens. I'm looking at our computer boards here, and boy, I have to tell you, our telephone lines are, oh boy, lots of people coming in there. They want to listen into the program. And if you folks are listening in out there on YouTube, we'd love to have you come into the program and speak up. Don't be afraid. In fact, the number's right there. If you want to dial in, 727-731-6701. That is the number. That is a number that's helping so many people. I could sit here all night long and bloviate Oh, there's Rick. But geez, when you guys call in, it is remarkable. It becomes electrifying. When you guys call in, all of a sudden something happens that is wonderful. More and more people say, wow, look at all the PMOs. Look at all the people speaking up. This must not be the truth. Hey, we all needed that when we were getting out of the organization, didn't we? We had to, we had to have it solidified. We had to see it was very credible. And it just wasn't a few apostates. There's plenty of them out there. All right. I hear some woman in the background. Did you want to speak up? If you like to, you can. Anyone wants to speak up, you can. If not, we'll move on to our next story.
Rick?
Yes.
Hi, Rick. I just didn't want to interrupt everybody. I love your show. I love the JW World News because it's so incredibly informative. It just seems to me, and I notice this every time I would be in some big, huge office building and I would look at the directory, I noticed that the higher up in the corporation that I looked, the more it was white men, old white men. Lower you can be just about any race, but the higher you got, the more white it got. And I kind of went, whoa. And then I noticed the Watchtower was the same way. And these guys that just got appointed, you know, I am sure they are well researched. Make sure that they are solidly loyal company men, first and foremost, always and forevermore, loyal to the Watchtower. When they give their credentials about their service to Jehovah, understand, take out the word Jehovah and put in organization, because they always say Jehovah when they really mean loyally serving the organization. And whatever they do, the organization, and whatever they present, it's always going to be new light, because even if somebody does think there's something weird going on, this doesn't smell right, you can't say anything, because you'll be looked at sideways and drawn into the back room and accused of being an apostate. Thank you, Rick.
Well, Anne-Marie, you're absolutely right. And yes, Watchtower is synonymous with Watchtower is synonymous with Jehovah. You say Jehovah, then you got it. That's the Watchtower. You say Watchtower, that's Jehovah. So it's synonymous with the word Jehovah. Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. That's a good. Yes, Kurt.
I hate to bother you again. I'm hearing you really clearly. Anne-Marie, I heard her really clear. Zachary's last comment, I could hear him better. The first two times I couldn't hear him. I don't want to make anybody mad at me, but whoever's talking, I know you guys know this, but whoever's talking, be sure you get close enough to your phone or computer mic or whatever. Because some of the comments, I don't know if everybody agrees or not, but some of the comments, I just can't hear people. I'm hearing you. Anne-Marie was very loud and clear there a minute ago, and Zachary was better there at the last call. Anyway, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for taking my call.
Well, thank you, Kurt, for saying that, because, you know, everyone, I had a woman write me today from the United Kingdom, and she said she loves to listen in, but sometimes the people, she can't hear them that well. So, you know, let's take Kurt's admonition there. Let's come right close to your phone. Don't hold it way away. And, you know, when you're done speaking, like I say, always hit *6. And remember, that phone is an open mic. So if you're fiddling around with paperwork or dishes in the background, we can hear it. So we want to hear you. We want you to come nice and close to the phone. Don't be shy. The phone's not going to bite you, but come as close as you can so we can hear it the best way we possibly can. That's one of the problems with this program, is getting, because everyone's phone is different. Everyone's phone is different. All right. So anyways, let's take a look here. Does someone want to say something before we move to the next story? Anything you want to say?
Just a quick hi, Rick. My name's Dodie.
Hi.
I just discovered you about a month ago, and you, just everyone on the live chat, the thread, this is such a community for me, and I'm sure for others. I'm almost 60 years old. I was born in, like, when I was, born 2 or 3 years old. But I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and there was so much racism. I grew up in a Mexican family, and all the white folks in our congregation, they looked down on us. And anyway, I got out when I was 18, but I really struggled with trying to embrace some other form of spirituality. And then I constantly, even today, 40 years later, I still just think about the trauma and all this twisted development, ranging from just all the stupid stuff, the rules, not able to go to school, go to college. I ended up going to college. But what I'm saying is I still have an entire family entrenched. My 2 brothers are elders, my mother's. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and most of them are still in this cult. And it's just very hard to watch their children now. Anyway, you guys, and so many other people on YouTube have provided such a great community. Earlier I was listening in, trauma shared. This is such trauma, and I don't want to, just stick with it all the time, but it's a great place to come to and go and listen. I read the threads, I listen to you guys, I listen to a ton of other channels. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm out here in California.
Well, thank you, Dodie. Well, thank you, Dodie, for chiming in with us. And don't be a stranger now. You come back and see us again, okay?
Thank you. I sure will.
All right, good. That's Dodie out of California. It's very, very good. Well, she's new, right? We got new ones calling in. More and more people are leaving the Watchtower and coming in. But, she brought it up tonight. Zach brought it up, a few other people. They wonder, do you remember what it was like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s in the Jehovah's Witness organization? It was different, right? It was way different. I mean, I basically was I went through the 50s as a young kid, 60s. But I'll tell you, the 60s I really remember. I was kind of young back in the 50s, but the 60s was a different era. It was a different way that Jehovah's Witnesses operated. We had a presiding overseer, and he was a normal guy. He didn't seem like there wasn't that much pressure put on you back then. People were having New Year's parties. Some people celebrated Christmas. People were still celebrating Halloween. It wasn't a big deal back in the late 50s and 60s. And it was really more genuine. It was more, you felt more connected. You didn't have this cult-like feeling. It was really, really different. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it started, moving in a direction that really ultimately got worse. The organization, though, I have to tell you, in the 60s, 70s, they always expected complete obedience. And they always have done that. And they've always been misogynists and sexist. They've always been that, as long as I can remember. And in many ways, they might have been a little more hardcore on some issues, but not like it got during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And now it seems like they're even lightening up a lot. And everyone was expected, when you were Jehovah's Witness in the 60s and 70s, you were expected to fall in line without question. And then it got a little softer as the years went on. And I have to say, many people have really written me and talked to me about what it was like when they were in the 60s and 70s. And there's still a bunch of us out there. There's plenty of people listening to the program here tonight. There was reasonable people. Let me put it that way. When I look back my trek in the Watchtower in the 60s and the 70s, people, many of them seemed fairly intelligent to me. Maybe it was only because I was younger, but there seemed to be more intelligence, and there seemed to be more reasonable people in any given congregation. That I can tell you. Even my presiding overseer was a reasonable man, and the other overseers too, the ministerial servants, seemed to be reasonable. They weren't tyrants like you see them today. And we were all sold on truthfulness, right? That's what we always thought. We were getting the truth. We're in the truth. And we were sold on the truthfulness of the Watchtower's belief system. And, things got a little bit different. And now...
Hi, Rick.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. This is a pasta babe. I'm revisiting the past with you as you're talking about it.
Yeah.
And I can remember 1968 looking at the article, Why Are You Looking Forward to 1975? And I literally grew up on 1975. All of those years topped 1975. And I can remember, so the 70s, I went through school. 71, I was in first grade. You know, each year I had, 74, I was in fourth grade, every single meeting. There was not a meeting that went by that didn't explain some kind of doctrine that when connected with another doctrine we were taught, it all went together like a puzzle, and it meant we were expecting Armageddon to happen in 1975. They had charts and everything. And at that time, ministry school, we were actually taught to debate. We were not taught go to jw.org. No. we were taught how to debate in ministry school. So there was a different kind of mindset. I agree with you. We were more thinking then. How can we had a little book, Reasoning from the Scriptures. We'd look up the subject and be able to talk to the person at the door for whatever subject they brought up. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, I'm glad you chimed in, Pasta Babe, and agreeing with me. I'm glad people agree with me, but I think most people listening in, because, you go back into the 60s, 70s, 80s, particularly 60s and 70s, even before the elder arrangement, which came into effect in 71, 72, right around there, they didn't have elders. They had a presiding overseer and ministerial servants. And all of those ministerial servants back then, they were in their 30s, they were in their 40s. And if you were a presiding overseer, boy, you were gray-haired. You like my overseer, and plenty of them, they were older men. They were 50 to 70 years old. And that's things changed since then. We have a lot of younger ones now that participate in the ministerial positions. But even the conventions back then, Pasta Babe, and I'm sure you'll agree, you went as a young girl.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, they had electricity.
Yes, I'm California, too.
Yeah.
I'm California, too, like Miss Jody. And we did Dodger Stadium. And, oh, my God, it was this whole, we didn't get a hotel or anything because Dodger Stadium wasn't driving distance. I grew up in Los Angeles County, so we would drive there and drive back every day. But to get there and to get seats, you had to get there super early to save your seats. And then the heat was unbearable for me because I'm very sensitive to the heat, but that would be just to make sure you could get a place in the shade. But I hung out a lot with my dad at the 76 station because he was a mechanic and they put him there. So I got to wear jeans sometimes. I thought it was the coolest thing ever that I didn't have to wear a dress. I could hang out at the 76 station and not have to wear a dress. But we heard the assemblies from there. All the speakers in the parking lot were playing the whole assembly, or else there was a radio that they would turn on, and it would pipe in the assembly talks and everything. Different day.
Well, thank you, Pasta Babe. No, thanks for bringing back memories. I'm sure we'll get a lot of people. Go ahead. Yeah, you're on with us.
Yeah, hey Rick, this is Michael. How you doing?
Michael, good.
I just want to tell you on that vein that she's talking about. You let me give my testimony about a month ago, and I directly talked to Fred France himself about that 1975 date, and the reason that came about is because I worked for Jewish people, and I would go give this testimony, or about the prophecy about 1975 to the Jewish people. And when I did that, they laughed at me and they said, "No, Michael, come on, here, let me show you." And then they would show me where the temple was destroyed in 587. They showed me how this all couldn't be true. And that was one of the reasons I had the faith enough and the determination enough to talk to Fred France directly about that date and about that temple and everything. And like I said before on my testimony, I knew that he knew it was a lie right from the beginning. And I talked to him about it. So, and that was way back in 1973.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was pretty incredible time. And yes, they had in their magazine articles that in 1975. They also had in the Kingdom Ministry that they almost said it word for word that the end was going to come in 1975. I kept those things, and that is one of the reasons why I got shunned, and then I never got the fellowship. They just shunned me, and I just walked away. But I had a meeting because I gave those articles from the Watchtower and from the Kingdom Brothers, and then they turned me into the elders, and the elders came to my house. So.
Oh yeah, well that's what they're going to do, Michael.
Yeah. So
Michael, I got baptized in 1975, and you're right. I still remember the sentence, the exact words from the platform. They said, if you're 12 years old and older, you know right from wrong. And don't think you can get through Armageddon on the coattails of your parents. Because
That's right.
you'll be destroyed just like all the other world people. The birds will peck your eyes out and all that
dead
stuff.
Carcass. Yep.
Yep. I mean,
this is our bedtime stories. Yes.
Yeah, seriously.
I love the building arrangement.
Do y'all remember the rooming arrangement when we used to go door to door? And I mean, can you imagine today going to somebody's house and saying, do you have an extra room that you could loan to one of our congregants that is coming to our city, for our annual convention? I mean, I remember when they gave us all those little tablets. Everybody that was a publisher would get a tablet, and we would go literally door to door asking if people had an extra room that they would mind somebody staying in. Like, we had 7-day conventions from morning till late at night. And they were called congregation servants, weren't they, Rick? Not elders, not presiding overseer. Wasn't it called our congregation servant?
I don't know about that, but hey, Deb, you talk about being baptized. When I left the organization, my mother, I was baptized a witness when I was 20. But when I left the organization, my mother, she stayed in it all the way till she died. But she said, Michael, you're not really baptized because I accepted Christ in my life. And you know what I did? You know what I did, Deb? I went to Israel. And I got baptized in the Jordan River and took a film of it. So I said, hey, Mom, I got baptized the same place Jesus did. If you got a problem with it, take it up with him. Will you please? So.
Well, there you go. That's quite the. Well, hold on, Debbie. Debbie, we're gonna let's get back to our news here. Okay, we're getting sidetracked, but I'm glad to hear you. I'm glad to hear everyone's expressions and Imposter Babe and Michael, and we got a lot more people want to come in and talk. So, but I wanted to just say that the conventions back in the earlier days, 60s and 70s, they were electrifying. I mean, you would go. I look forward to going to them. And do you guys remember? I'm going to play you this. Now, you listen to this. This is Charles Sonutko, and I'm going to play you the tape. You listen to this. This is the convention. He was talking about what was going to happen in 1975. So let's listen in to Charles Sonutko. I want you to hear this. I know you'll find it very, very fascinating.
So some of us have become a little weary. It almost seems as though Jehovah has provided meat in due season, because he's held up before all of us a new goal, a new year, something to reach out for, and it just seems it's given all of us so much more energy and power in this final burst of speed for the finish line. And that's the year 1975. There's been a lot of talk about the year. In fact, even this week, some individuals have been wondering, well, what does it mean? Or do we dare talk about it? Is it something we can discuss among ourselves, even though we might not talk about it too much in public? Do we really know what it means? Well, we don't have to guess what the year 1975 means. If we read the Watchtower, because the Watchtower has been very explicit as to what the year 1975 means for us. If you wish to write down the page 262 in the 1967 issue of the Watchtower, we read, what does the year 1975 mean for humankind? The end of 6,000 years of human existence, and possibly the time when God executes the wicked and starts off a 1,000-year reign under his Son, Jesus Christ. Unquote.
All right, stop right there on that one. But boy, wasn't that electrifying? I mean, if you were there and you heard that talk by Senatko, that's how the talks used to be. And we used to go walking out of the conventions back in the 60s and 70s with our head hitting the doorpost on the way out. And I mean, he electrified the audience, even though he was lying to them. He wasn't telling them the truth. But those the conventions today and assemblies aren't like that. Yeah, go ahead. You're on with us.
You know what? I have one more thing to add, and that is I was watching Watchtower History with Jeff and Paul, and they put up different articles on the screen, and I screenshot something regarding back in the day when Rutherford was president, and it said, the Finnish mystery, the post-humanist work of Pastor Russell, meaning like Russell was talking to him and he was getting messages from Russell, tells why there are millions now living who will never die. And if you can keep alive until 1925, you have excellent chances of being one of them. This is recycled stuff.
Well, no, that's right. They rehash it. Yes.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to share.
Well,
Thanks,
that's good. Thank you, Pastor Babe. Now, what happens as the years go on? I mean, the 60s and 70s, like I say, it was electrifying. The witness was sharper. They were more on the ball. People could understand it more. More and more people were coming into the organization. When I went to the convention in 1969, Peace on Earth Convention, New York City, 120,000 people were there. People were coming in like crazy. They all wanted to be part of the Jehovah's Witness organization. They loved what they were hearing. And then things started changing. Things started changing in the 1970s. Now, you remember back in the 50s and 60s, if you can remember back that far, we used to meet in rented buildings. We didn't have assembly halls. We used to have our conventions, our assemblies in high schools. And I can even remember a meeting in an Odd Fellows hall and even a Masonic hall. We used to rent these halls. So there you have, the things were different, but that's not the way it is. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I tell you
go ahead.
Something relative? When I was really little, I remember we met in halls that were not assembly halls. And our place where we met, on Saturday night, it had a very large lobby. And they probably held boxing matches there, but it had a very large lobby. And they would take a rope. If you went to the right, you went up the stairs into the auditorium. If you went on the doors on the left, you went to another part of this place. But they had a cabaret going on at the same time as the circuit assembly on Saturdays. And what they would do is they would take a rope and bring it up, put a rope up the middle of the lobby, and the witnesses would be on one side and the cabaret people on the other side. And they had alcohol and everything, because I remember after the assembly, and cleaning up, when we walked into those rooms when they were not being used, you could smell the alcohol. But that was where we had our circuit assemblies.
Wasn't that something? No, you have a good memory, Zach,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what went
Yeah.
on. And, it kind of brought back memories to me as well, because when I was just a young guy, say 8, 10 years old, going to the Kingdom Hall up here in Lowell, Massachusetts, we rented the top floor of a movie theater. And during the meetings, you could hear the movie going on down below. Yeah, so things have changed, but in the 1970s, something happened. All of a sudden, we started having quick bills. We started having Kingdom Halls being built pretty much all over the place. This is when the Watchtower started their real estate business, when you think about it. So the Kingdom Halls were now going to be owned by the witnesses. And I thought it was really crazy how we used to even, people don't want to connect the witnesses with Freemasonry, but man, I'm going to tell you, they did meet in Freemason lodges. That's a known fact. So, things have come quite a way since the 1960s. But, back then, being Zach, I'm just going to have you mute your phone if you would, Zach. Back in the 19. Oh, okay. Just hold on. So back in the 1960s and the 1970s, there was a more cozy. There was a more cozy feeling. You felt, geez, you felt good being a Jehovah's Witness. You were proud. You felt like a Navy SEAL. You felt like, man, this is the right organization. But then things started changing in the 70s, and then they got more and more young people to pioneer, and then these pioneers formed little cliques, and then everybody that wasn't pioneering, they were just marginal witnesses and looked down upon. So things started changing. And the Watchtower became more corporate and more legalistic. I think everyone will agree with that in the 70s and 80s. And circuit overseers.
Hey,
Yes.
I was thinking, you're saying when the Watchtower started changing. I would say after Noor died. And after that, they did I don't know what they did. They changed something about the governing body. But after Noor died, and maybe Zach could comment on that too. After Noor died, things started changing as far as the governing body was concerned.
Well, you're right with that, Susan. No, that was a turning point as well. Zach, do you have any comments on that at all?
Well, I was just going to say one thing was that I think what they may have been building Kingdom Halls, but the quick builds came along more in the 80s. What they did was they did an assembly hall where people no longer had to meet in one part of the country. They did an assembly hall, then they did another one, and the assembly hall started popping up, and then they started with the quick builds. Brother Noor died. Now about Brother Noor, didn't he die in the late 70s?
I'm not sure, but as you're talking, I'm going to find that out. I knew one time. I'm going to punch you in. Go ahead, keep talking, Zach.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just thinking that the 70s was. Rick earlier mentioned what presiding overseers used to look like, and if you go back to maybe the last years of the 60s and maybe up to 71. Those presiding overseers were called congregation servants. And then they had, in the olden days, they had 3 men who were called the committee. They were the congregation servant, the assistant congregation servant, and the Bible study servant. And there were other servants, but they were like territory and literature and magazine. But those 3 men were they were called the committee, and they were on every committee, disfellowshipping or people being put on probation. They were on every committee, and if you had a problem with one of them, you couldn't get around that. It was those 3 men. Then in the 70s, when you get to around 72, that's when the organization book came out around 71, and it outlined an elders arrangement where there would be 5 men, 5 brothers. One would be the presiding overseer, another the field overseer, the other one was the Bible study overseer, a Watchtower overseer or Watchtower study conductor, and the theocratic ministry school overseer. They started rotating. Every year, they would all move from one position to another, and then they stopped the rotation and only rotated the presiding overseer. Then they took away the field overseer and put in a service overseer, and they took out the Bible study overseer and they put in a secretary. And that's like the current elder arrangement, no rotations. And so the governing body, it seems like they followed that arrangement when around 1977. That's when the picture in the Watchtower that had the organization, I think at the top was the faithful and discreet slave. Then there was the governing body. And then they had these committees of the governing body. One was mentioned tonight when Rick mentioned those two brothers. One of them served as a helper on the personnel committee of the governing body. So they had these committees, and then they had the elders in the congregations and the ministerial servants. That was kind of an organizational chart. A lot may have changed around then, and I know that Brother Noor, I've read on the internet, Brother Noor kind of fought against the governing body, the spreading of power around the governing body. And he was trying to go with the old president, vice president model. But the congregations were doing this elder arrangement thing where they had 5 men. And so pressure was on for the governing body to do the same thing, because they're supposed to be out front. They're supposed to be the model. This is how it's supposed to be done. If they're doing it like that in the congregations, we should have been doing it first. And so 77 is where this 12, 13, 14, I guess maybe at one time it was 17 people on the governing body, and they started dying off. I don't know if that's the change, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just say here, we get some more people. Hold on one second. But Brother Noor died on June 8th, 1977, Zach, from a cerebral tumor while receiving hospice care at Watchtower Farms. So 1977 he died. Yes, you're pretty much on track here. Yep.
Yeah.
Zach, what do you call quick bill?
Quick bill. The first time I heard quick bill, someone said, a circuit overseer said, on a Friday, you went by a spot and there was nothing there. And on Sunday, when you went by the same spot, there was a Kingdom Hall. So quick bills used to be, they used to be done over one weekend. But I think in more recent...
I did it, Zach. Yeah. I was in charge of a lot of that stuff, and wow. Actually did that in 1973. I did quick bill in 73. Because a lot of people were coming into the organizations at that time.
Yes. Oh, so you're saying that you're saying the weekend Kingdom Hall started in 70, at least as early as 73?
I built 4 of them. Yep. I did one in 73, 74.
Well, yeah, I can't disagree with you. Yeah. So then the quick bills changed a little bit, because I think they started doing them over several weekends. That's all.
Yeah, well, that's what they did. Yeah, go ahead. Come on, we got another caller coming in. Go ahead, whether you're on with us.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing. Back in the early 70s, the IRS changed how they handled corporations, and they sent a letter out to the corporations, including Watchtower, that they wanted to know who was the officers of their governing body. And I think that's where they picked up the term, was that the IRS wanted to know who they were, and the organization said, oh wow, we can use that name, and started calling themselves the governing body because the IRS looked at them that way.
Oh, that's fascinating, Denise. I never heard that before. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, excellent. But I'll tell you what, the organization morphed along from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then into the 80s. They got really a little bit more concerned, In the 80s is when Raymond Franz, formerly a governing body member of the Jehovah's Witnesses, he shared and reveals his inner working of a governing body in a penetrating view in a book that he wrote, Crisis of Conscience. And I'll tell you what, that kind of rocked the organization in the 80s, and they began to be more on a witch hunt and looking for people who weren't in total agreement with them. And obviously, the 80s, they started tightening things up quite a bit in view of Ray Franz's book, Crisis of Conscience. And then in the 1990s, the internet arrived and the gig was really up. I mean, this is what really created havoc and tarnished the image of the Watchtower. And each witness could now anonymously and confidentially, courtesy of the internet chat rooms, JWN and Reddit and other chat rooms like that, we could now get together and talk and let people know how we felt about the Watchtower. This was really disturbing. The internet is the great equalizer. And so many, they never realized they were involved in a cult until they started talking with other ex-witnesses. So really, the Watchtower organization really never saw the internet coming. And it really is what's creating such havoc in that organization right now. And that is the reason for the hemorrhage and why so many people are leaving. So I wanted to share those thoughts with you. I think most everyone listening in here tonight will agree. And one time the only exposure to apostates the witnesses had back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s was basically protesters. And many of these protesters outside of conventions, well, they were Bible thumping, born again apostates, so to speak, with their scripture placards, and they would picket. And they didn't get much attention. But the internet is something far, far worse. And there's so many witnesses now that are seeing what's going on behind the curtains. But there's going to be many still left in. They put all of their life into it. They're not going to leave now. They're in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And there's an accounting term. We referred to it here numerous times. It's called sunk, S-U-N-K, sunk cost. And that's an accounting term. It's you've already put so much time and money and effort into this particular arrangement. In this case, these people who've been witnesses all their life, they can't stop now. They got to keep going. So it's going to be more difficult in the future to recruit people into this cult. As a matter of fact, the organization is now trying to recruit a very specific type of person. And my opinion, the newer people joining the Watchtower, they're not going to be too shrewd. I'm just putting it politely. I'm believing they're going to have a grade level 5 mentality. They're going to attract people that have a mentality of an 11-year-old person. They're going to be able to attract people like that. And the Jehovah's Witness faith will attract people who view Stephen Lett as a great, wise, knowledgeable, enlightened man. He's a cult leader, but they view him, oh, Stephen Lett, what a man. This is the type people the Watchtower will be attracting in the future. You're on with us. Go ahead, speak up.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Hey, Rick.
Sister first.
I'm just thinking, there's another term aside from sunk, because so many of these witnesses came in believing in the early 60s, late 50s, through the 70s during the Armageddon, 1975 Armageddon prophecy. And then, of course, we know the Watchtower lost a lot because it was all about serve Jehovah, be faithful to Jehovah. Satan doesn't want you to, have everlasting life. So fight against the machinations of the devil. And it was all about be faithful to Jehovah. Don't let Satan win. But when Armageddon didn't come and people started saying, wait a second, and all those thousands left. And I remember you mentioned it was like 22,000 or more that just walked out. Then in early 77 or late 76, brother Fred Franz was going around telling everybody how rotten they were and how self-righteous they were, and chastising them for being disappointed that Jehovah showed them mercy by holding back his wrath. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So it went from serving Jehovah, fight against the machinations of the devil. Not that many people were being disfellowshipped. But then as more and more people started to question, it became more about be faithful to the organization, obey the organization, be loyal to the organization. If you are disloyal or disobedient or murmuring against the organization, then you're being disloyal and disobedient and murmuring against Jehovah. And more, they have become so tyrannical to now you can get disfellowship just for pointing out subliminal sexual images in the magazines or the books, or asking too many questions. But the thing is, they have not only sunk everything into the organization, they have become what prisoners call institutionalized, to where a prisoner is so used to living according to being a prisoner and have everybody telling him when to go to sleep, how to go to sleep, what to wear, when he can eat, when he can go to the bathroom, when he can take a shower. And even when they get out, they're lost. They will actually commit a crime to go back to the prison. And I think that is a lot of the reason why these older ones, they just stay, because they don't want to wake up. It's just easier to stay with their head in the sand. Oh, well, the same old excuses. Thank you so much, Rick.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. That's good. Well, you're on JW World News. We're coming to the end of the program here. We got about 10 minutes left. So if you'd like to speak up, now's your chance to do it. If you'd like to give your thoughts. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I just was hoping to hear from some of the more experienced people, because I know the ministry's changed dramatically, but there used to be a lot more discussion. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd study the Bible and you could ask questions, and doesn't it seem a lot more, I don't know about you, but doesn't it seem like a lot more just point to the website, we don't really want you to ask any questions? I just wondered what everybody's thoughts were on that, because I'm a born-in. I used to go to the doors and we'd have at least 20-minute conversations with people. And now I don't think they're having any conversations really with anyone. And I just wondered what people's thoughts were about that.
Well, there is.
I can comment on that.
Hold on, Michael. Let me just give a thought here. Then we'll bring Michael in. No, what you've got here, brother, is exactly the truth. It's been dumbed down. It's been dumbed down. They're not really teaching the Watchtower people today what we were taught back in the earlier days. I'm not trying to sound like a dinosaur here, but it's the absolute truth. They're just trying to get people to go to jw.org, and that's it. So that's their whole purpose of going door to door, to get people to go to jw.org. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'll go along with what you say, Rick. I witnessed to witnesses. Okay, and I can't. And they call it. They don't want to debate. They just turn. We're just turning to. They can't take a Bible. They can't even take their Bible and prove what they believe. And I'll debate. I always say, give me any Jehovah's Witness and give me the New World Translation in the Bible and let me have at it for about an hour with them. I love to debate it, but they don't do it no more.
Oh, no, they don't. No, they don't. No, they back right off. They don't get into it. But gee, when we went to the door, Michael, and even the man calling in, I'm sure we were prepared. Many of us had the reasoning book. We had the reasoning book actually bound right into our Bible. And we had that in the back so we could look up scriptures and everything. They don't do that today. It's a different organization. Yes.
Just think, Rick, how you going to, I always tell my buddy, I say, take your Bible, take your New World Translation and show me where Michael is Jesus. Just show me that.
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
Yeah, well, they can't. They're not going to get into that. Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for chiming in with us. Does that answer the question, brother? I'm sure there's others. What about you guys out there listening? Do you feel that Jehovah's? Yes, go ahead.
Hey, it's Eric from Providence. And,
yes, Eric.
I just wanted to add a comment to what we were talking about. Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
like I was born in '81, so this is fast forwarding a little bit from the '70s and '50s or that era that we've been talking about. But my wife and I were talking about how the conventions, they used to have like beef sandwiches and Italian grinders, and then they took that away. Be hot as hell in there, and come to find out they're just saving money in the air conditioner. It was never broken, and then everything just went downhill from that point forward. I was disfellowshipped twice, and the first time I got disfellowshipped, there was more love it with the brothers. The second time, it never happened with 4 reinstatement letters. Everything is getting worse in this organization. And just to give you a quick little encouragement to everyone listening, that after 7 years of not talking to my brother because I'm an apostate, I didn't know that when I finally contacted him that he's a PMO, physically and mentally out, and so is his wife. He's inactive, and things aren't the greatest, softly shunned kind of with my family. But the good news is too is that a couple of guys asked about me, and I asked them, my brother, about the couple of guys, and I said, are they still in it? And there's he didn't know how to describe it, but what it is they're pin cues. People are shocked with and things aren't making sense to people when Stephen Lett says babies are enemies of God. But I thought I would tell everybody that because, it's like the expression word on the street. And it's good news that Watchtower is bleeding out. They got 2 new governing body members, but they're losing people left and right, and they don't even know it.
Well, Eric, thank you for sharing that. No, they are hemorrhaging. You're right. They are hemorrhaging right now. Excellent. Well, we got time for one more comment, and then we're going to have to wrap this up. So,
Hey, Rick?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Dan. Yeah, I freaked out too, like that brother was saying, when I had somebody come to my door about 6 months ago, and they were on the iPad, and they didn't say anything. I just kind of like, hello, do you need something? Do you want something? And she puts her face around I'll just call it what do they call those things? Teleprompter, And she puts her face around, smiles, and says, 1 minute. And then she turned it around to me, and it was this very slow, we're Jehovah's Witness. It was a movie or something I was watching. And it's weird, but they're going artificial intelligence, and they're connecting you to artificial intelligence. We're not connecting with those people anymore. We're connecting with a machine. And we really are. I mean, when she put that thing, I was like, this is like retarded. I mean, where's the heart? When we talked, we would go to the door a little nervous. But boy, we believed in those scriptures. We took them to Psalms. We took them to, 17:3. We took them to Psalms 83:18. We were proud of those scriptures to let people know God's name's Jehovah. The earth's going to be a paradise. Wicked are going to be no more. And now I'm telling you, Rick, it was like a freak show. I looked at this girl and she was so proud to flip around that teleprompter. But Rick, there was nobody there. There's nobody there anymore. They're hooking them up. I know this sounds conspiracy, but they're hooking them up to artificial intelligence. We were at a hall a little while ago. The guy was reading the Watchtower from his iPhone, and the internet went out, and he had to stop and wait for it to come on. They kept going back on and off. This was a year ago, but it's turning into AI, the artificial intelligence. It's like when you can't contact a person. And then you're looking at a screen, and then they're telling you to look at to go to jw.org. What's weird, Rick? They're becoming internet salesmen. And the governing body are the trainers, and the people out in the force are the sales representatives, and they're selling governing body. They're not selling truth. They don't care about Jehovah. They don't care about Bible stuff. It's really clear now what they are, and they have degraded, Rick. I agree. I was totally different when I was in there. When you were in there, I believed this stuff. I was excited about assemblies. I liked making sandwiches. I liked cleaning up afterwards. I volunteered, but it's nothing like it was.
Altogether different, Dan. Well, thank you. Always good to hear from Dan. My goodness, always good to hear from Dan.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. Well, anyways, we're going to end the program here. We're going to move on to Jimmy Bell. He's coming on here next. He's got the big picture. What a program he's got highlighted for you guys tonight. Friends, I'll tell you what, the New World Order, it's on track. The Great Reset, as he calls it. He gets into this. He does a lot of research in this department. He's got his team coming on tonight. They're going to be talking about human trafficking, especially children. children being trafficked. I mean, can you believe that's probably even happening in the Watchtower? So I'm sure he'll touch on some of this. So he's coming on next. Now, folks, I want to thank everyone for coming into the 6 screens tonight. I really appreciate your presence. And I have to tell you that, don't send. What's that? Okay. We'll just keep it down if we can. So I have to tell you, folks, that we really appreciate you coming into the 6 screens. And, friends, don't send any money here. I know I tell you this a lot, but people still want to send money to the 6 screens, but we're okay. I got this little studio in my bedroom, and we're able to project out to the whole world. I'm not going to ask you to be a patron. I'm not going to ask you to donate any money. In fact, if you wanted to donate money, give it to someone that can use it. Give it perhaps to a Jehovah's Witness even. There's a lot of poor people right now. But I got out of the truth, so to speak, the Watchtower free. It didn't cost me a penny. People like Silent Lambs and Randy Waters and Barbara Anderson and all of these people. So I just want to say that to you. And if you really want to help us, if you really want to say, Rick, we want to do something for this program, here's what you can do. Like us, subscribe to us, spread the word, share some of these videos so we can spread the word. That's what we're here for. We're trying to get more and more people to come to understand what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. We got Jimmy Bell, the big picture. It's coming up next right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. I want to thank everyone that came into the program tonight, and especially all of those people that spoke up, and we got to hear what you have to say about one of the most evil organizations on the planet. Stay with us. The big picture's up next. Thank you very much for being with us.